He'd have the cocaine parties, unbeknownst to me. He'd get an ounce of cocaine and a bunch of prostitutes, and they would celebrate.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Becoming the King of Pots. My name's Todd Denkin, and of course, with me is my criminal cousin, Bruce Perlowin, the King of Pot. Bruce, what's happening?
Oh, we have a great story today, and your criminal cousin is really your outlaw cousin, your swashbuckling cousin, or your basically modern-day pirate cousin.
Yeah, all of those things, right? So last week, we were talking about these really successful loads that came into California. Things were cranking, and then, oh shit, I got to get to Florida because I got to go to court. So tell us what you were indicted for and tell us about this infamous trial.
All right, so I'm out there rocking and rolling, and in this trial, 2 boats had just came in pretty much back to back. 3 months later, another boat came in. This is also in like a period of like 4 months, we had 3 boats. I got millions of dollars. I'm not sweating anything. I got to go to court. The trial.
Wait, so what's that like? You got millions of dollars. You got like $2 million. You got like $10 million.
Closer to 15.
Wow, that's awesome. So what's that like? I mean, what's going through your head when you got $15 million in your pocket?
Spending it as quick as I could on everything to expand the business. And I'm going to go over that in the second half of this podcast as to what we were doing while I was at trial. This massive organization.
But I want to back up, though. I want to talk more about this $15 million. This is more money you've ever seen in your lifetime. This is, really the big time. $15 million. What's happening I did it? Is there a sense of accomplishment? What's happening in your head?
Well, yeah, there is a sense of accomplishment after each load. It's like winning the Super Bowl. The elation is beyond belief. But I got Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, Panama to put money in, the Cayman Islands. I'm buying timeshare units, hotels. I'm buying hotels. I was buying the National Bank of Belize at the time, negotiated by that, 125,000 acres down in Belize. So you're spending a lot of money buying boats, mostly.
That's crazy.
Infrastructure, houses for stash houses. I bought.
That's crazy. So you buy a bunch of businesses, and this is to launder money. This is to make sure you keep your money, and this is to expand the business.
Yeah, all of that, every bit of that.
Got it.
Yeah, there's always buying more boats.
Right. All right. So you're buying all this stuff, and you're expanding and spending all this cash. And then you got to go to this trial. What's happening at this trial? What were you indicted for?
The indictment was for a Jamaican smuggle that the Boyd brothers did, the infamous Smith brothers, Darrell and Tracy Boyd. And they had fronted me 8,000 pounds, which I sold. So I was like the lowest guy on the totem pole at this point. There are all the big smugglers, Herschel Williams. I think the ex-mayor of Hollandale, John Steele, was a part of that. Dickie Schwartz, some of the Black Tuna gang members. And I was just a salesman, but I was a fugitive, so they all had gone to trial, and they all testified against each other, mostly, except Darrell and Tracy. Darrell split to Buffalo, New York. I split to California. That was the trial that we are now facing. All right, and they reinitiated the search when I went and picked up Aubrey because it was my time for custody, and Diane was hiding him from me. So I went and picked him up. I got custody, and they called that kidnapping, which they, of course, dropped it when they saw the divorce agreement. So, but that initiated the search for me because she's saying, "Oh, he kidnapped my son. He's a drug dealer," and she wanted $50,000 if you remember last time before she let me see him again.
Yeah, right.
All right, so they found me, arrested me. I bailed out. 2 loads came in when I was in prison. We went over that, and now it's time, months later, to go to trial. So I fly back to Florida to go to trial. All right. Now, the trial was friggin' amazing. I said, okay, I have all the money in the world to run a first-class defense. So I had Alan Silver, the attorney who will be on next episode, Barry Papo, another attorney from his office. They were out of New York. Local counsel was Magazine in Bloomingfield and Ellen Leesfield. They were local. We had 2 jury and trial consultants, Kat Bennett, and a lady named Marta. We had a very famous, now he's very famous, Tink Thompson, as a private investigator, going and interviewing all the government witnesses against me. Tink wrote a book called 6 Seconds in Dallas about the Kennedy assassination, and just recently, 1 Second in Dallas.
So what's that like? So you're feeling like a big shot, right? You have this ginormous legal team, and you're confident as hell at this point.
I'm extremely confident. There was another lawyer, Sophie, and her husband, or maybe she was a jury and trial consultant, and then Becky was helping learn about jury and trial consulting, which that later became her career for 20 years, which was very rewarding for me. That helped her get a career, and I'm comfortable. But here's the funny thing. All right, now we were running an alibi defense. I had opened up the Magic Woodsman, the Redwood Burl furniture store up in Gainesville, Florida, and in Galton Ocean Mile, and in South Florida, all right, or North Miami.
I remember I literally had a table. My whole childhood growing up, like from middle school on, we had a redwood table as our dining room table.
It's literally shocking how many people in their houses today, 45 years later or 50 years later, still have those tables.
Yeah.
Right?
I wish I had it. I wish I still had it. Yeah.
So, we're going to restart it. I got a bunch of them in North Carolina. We're going to do a bunch of tables, slabs.
Nice.
We'll get you another one.
Okay, good.
So anyway, so the alibi defense was, Bruce was in Gainesville on October 15th, 1975. Therefore, he could not be in Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, October 15th, same date that the smuggle happened, that this load came in. How could he be in two places at once? So we were bringing in people to say Bruce was in Gainesville. He was never in Fort. No one saw me in Miami. Herschel Williams could have, I told you that, he could have busted me. He was the only one that saw me. He was testifying for the government, and he actually said he never saw me there. So although he ratted out on Tracy and Daryl and some other people, he really helped me. He could have buried me, and he didn't. All right. So everybody else was going to say the same thing. Bruce was in Gainesville. So that was our alibi defense. Now, Becky or somebody in our group did a tarot card reading or a astrology reading on me, and there was no confinement in my chart.
Trouble.
Yeah. And then, Bruce, there's no confinement in your chart. Look, here's the cards. Here's the astrological sign. So I go, Alan, I'm not worried about anything. Now, we're in a hotel. We're in the Mutiny Hotel. We rented about 3 or 4 rooms in the Mutiny Hotel, and I'm bringing in all these, flying all these people.
Interesting choice of names for the hotel choice.
Well, that's the famous hotel that they did a TV series on, the cocaine thing, because they had the Mutiny Club downstairs, which all the cocaine cowboys hang out with, and that was either running or was running on a TV series. So anyways, so we're up there in 3 or 4 rooms, all these ex-girlfriends and friends that had now moved on. So we flew them in from all over the country, put them up in a hotel, and we're doing the alibi defense. So Alan is doing witness preparation in one room, and we're all in the other room hanging out, talking and partying. And we also rented a house on the bay there. And so we stayed at the house and we stayed at the hotel of the legal team, and we divided it up between, the house and the hotels. So he's in there in the other room doing, and the jury and trial consultants are there and saying, how are you going to answer this question? How are you going to do this? If the government asks you this, how are you going to answer it? And they tell, don't, tilt your head a little bit, smile a little bit, answer to the jury, and, the whole thing. And so
you get a training, how to react, how to, answer. So it's all like a training.
Yeah. Yeah. The defense does it and the government does it on their end. So I'm looking at it and Alan's going, Bruce, this is really serious. You can get 15 years, 3 5-year sentences running consecutive, and you can go away for a really long time. At the very best, you can get 5 years running concurrently. And he says, well, so wipe that smile off your face. This is really serious. I go, Alan, there's no confinement in my chart. I'm fine. He goes, Bruce, forget that mumbo jumbo stuff. This is real serious now. I need you to be serious. I need you to take this serious. Oh, I can't take it serious. See, there's no confinement in my chart.
Alan, have you seen my tarot cards? Duh.
So I go in the other room. I say, Becky, okay, how does this look? Do I look serious? She goes, no, wipe that smell off your face. I go, okay, how's this? No, you're still smiling, Bruce. I go, all right, what about this? Yeah, okay, good. That looks serious. So I walk in the other room. I go, Alan, I'm taking this very seriously now. You're right. Okay. He was so relieved. Thank God. I was not concerned. There's no confinement in my chart. I was absolutely convinced. Meanwhile, they had nothing, we found out, about this massive smuggling organization out in California. They were totally focused, and you don't know. When I got arrested in Ukiah and then went to trial, you're always trying to figure out how much do they or do they not know? Do they know that I'm out in California smuggling? Do they know there's load after load after load coming in? And you just don't know. All right, so we're going.
What's happening in your head? I mean, are you afraid? Are you afraid to say the wrong thing? Or, what's happening?
There was no confinement in my chart. I was not worried about it.
What was I thinking? Right.
Everybody's partying at the house. I mean, I talked to a couple of people, in preparation. I want to get everything accurate and remember. So I'm calling everybody that was around back then. And they're saying, Bruce, that was nothing but a big, giant party. All right. So a couple instances. Okay. So Bruce, you got to be serious, and confinement chart was one thing. The alibi defense was another interesting story. Let's see, who was there? There was Kelly, my best friend, one of my best friends growing up. There was Kelly's mother who testified. She was not going to lie. And again, the whole thing was Bruce was not in Miami at the time. He was in Gainesville. And she could have busted me and answered wrong, but they didn't ask her the right questions. So that she was a good witness. Mark, one of my main distributors, Craig, Sally. Sally was a girl I grew up with in high school. It's the Sally story is hysterical. George, the guy that got beat up and robbed by the DEA. Michelle, an ex-girlfriend with her newborn son. Lois, with an ex-girlfriend with her newborn son. Kenny Cloud, Bobo, and Alex. Alex was my pilot.
Your pilot. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I had bought Becky an airplane for her birthday, and I believe that Alex and her, to get to the trial, they flew across country in the plane, and they actually landed in Arkansas, where I owned 350 acres of land. That's what you
and Becky, just so everybody knows, Becky was your wife out in California.
My common law wife that I had a child with, yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
So
who you lived in Ukiah with.
Yes. Yeah. And she actually ran the Magic Woodsman in Florida and moved out there after I moved out there. After I got the Ukiah house, she came out there shortly after that. All right, so we're at trial, and it's alibi defense. Everybody's being prepped, and we go out. Alan's out interviewing witnesses. Like he was out interviewing Dickie Schwartz. He was another guy that was testifying for the government. Reluctantly, it's years later now at this point. It's an old case. And it happened in 1975. This is now 1981. So it's 6 years later. People moved on with their lives. They don't want to testify for the government. So a lot of them were sort of helping us out. And the prosecutor calls the hotel room and says, I want to talk to Alan. And Kat Bennett answers the phone. She goes, he's not here. And the prosecutor goes, where is he? She goes, I'm not telling you. And he goes, is he out tampering with my witnesses? He's out tampering with my witnesses. I'm going to get you all for obstruction of justice. You're going to go to jail for obstruction of justice, young lady. And so is Alan, and so is everybody. All right. So
was he tampering with your witnesses?
No, he was interviewing his witnesses. And so Alan gets back. She tells Matt. Alan just laughs. He goes, they can't do that. I'm allowed legally by law to interview the witnesses. There's no tampering. I mean, if you're telling the witnesses to lie, that's tampering with the witness, and that's obstruction of justice. All right. It was neither one of those. He was just wanting to see how are they going to answer, so he would know how to basically trip them up and ask some questions that would be in my defense, rather than the government's defense. All right. So we started calling ourselves the obstructors. There's no confinement on chart, no problem. So now we're the obstructors. Okay, that's became our battle cry. Right? And you can see we weren't that serious. unbeknownst to me, every night at the house, Craig's bringing cocaine for everyone. They're snorting cocaine and everybody's partying. And we were living in the hotel mostly. I mean, they say I don't really remember sleeping at the house that much, but I did, some nights. We were living on Cuban coffee. It was like rocket fuel. I don't know if you
Cuban coffee and cocaine. That's a weird combination.
I was on the cocaine. All the witnesses were when they weren't ready to testify. And Craig, he was always doing that. After every load out in California, he'd have the cocaine parties. Unbeknownst to me, he'd get an ounce of cocaine and a bunch of prostitutes, and they would celebrate.
Wait a second. Okay. We got Craig on the phone, right? You said?
Yeah,
I
Craig.
I want to hear a cocaine prostitute story.
All right, hold on. Let me get him on speaker. Put him up to the mic. And Craig, what was this about what you did out in California that I didn't know about?
Well, what we had offload and we had the company. And I was collecting the money and dispersing the money. And on the expenses, I put under what was the offload and what the expenses were the company. And then I would give it to you and say, okay, I went through $2 million. Here's the true up. So you're going over the offload and you stop at $6,000 party. Yeah. What's $6,000? Bruce, I got to entertain the troops. Those are the workers, the crew, the guys that offload the pot. So after each load came in, a couple weeks after that, because we were still busy, a couple weeks after we offloaded, I would throw a party, get an ounce of coke, that's why I wanted to do the coke out in California. $3,000 an ounce, $1,500 in Florida, and 10 prostitutes at $300 a prostitute. So 3,000 equals 6,000. So that's, you go, oh, okay. I explained to what happened to the $6,000.
And was Bruce okay with it? Was he like, okay? Or he was like, it's not in the budget?
Was that in the budget, Craig?
If it came in the budget, I wrote it down in the budget, and you okayed it. But you questioned it. What's this $6,000 for party? And I explained it, and you go, oh, okay.
So talk about, what was it? Well, tell us about a cocaine prostitute party.
Walk us through a cocaine prostitute party.
You never leave the cocaine alone with the property. Rule number one. So we would rent it was like 2-story hotel. It's kind of stupid doing it. Well, but we rent a whole top floor, second floor, 10 rooms, 12 rooms. And everybody, invite 10 guys, 12 guys, and everybody had their room. And I would give them so much coke. And they would go party with each one would party with the prostitute. But we had connecting rooms, and this guy would go into this room, and oh God, and do that girl, then go to another room, do another girl. We had the girls for the whole night, so everybody was screwing everybody.
Thank you for that visual, Craig.
Well, actually, what it was is that guy Jerry, the private detective wife. They had a show in San Francisco. Todd, maybe you heard of it. The Mitchell Brothers. It was live sex act on stage.
Why would I have heard of that?
This guy Jerry's wife would use the girls as prostitutes. So they would have live sex act and then prostitute them. On the side. And there's a funny story. I don't know. It was Mark and Steve.
Who are Mark and Steve?
They were salespeople.
They were our main sales force. We brought them out from Florida. We worked with them in Florida. They came out and they would get most of my load. And then after I broke up with the Shore Brothers, which I want to talk about the Shore Brothers a little bit, my partners, they would get the entire load, all $9 million. So Craig would say, here's the load. You owe me $9 million. See you in a couple of weeks.
No, actually, I would go to his house and we would weigh it in. And he would have his people already there. We worked all night, breaking up the pot and loading up his people. And then I would weigh it, and it was 30,000 pounds, $300 a pound, $9 million. I would make a copy of it, hand it to Mark, and say, okay, you owe us $9 million, don't leave town. And that son of a bitch would pay us in full in 2 weeks, $9 million.
Wow. What's that like, getting a suitcase filled with $9 million?
I would go to his house. I had the $10, $5, $10 rule. Sometimes he said, "Come up. I got my people coming in. They're bringing me money. We'll count it. I'll pay you." And I had a rule that we're sitting there with his people, and they're giving us money, and you can't give us any fives or tens. It's just too small of a denomination. I mean, you're counting hundreds of thousands of dollars, and there's no counting machines. And physically counting it. And so one guy, and I knew all his people from Florida, and they were good. They were good salespeople. You knew they would open their mouths, so I knew all his people. And one guy was sitting there and pumps out fives and tens. So I just take the pile of fives and tens and push it over the side. And the guy goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "You know the rule." So I would keep that money. This time it was $2,000, somewhere around there. And I would give Mark 1,000 and me 1,000. I go, "That's my money." I said, "You know the rules." So anyways, I would, times I would go up there and meet with his people, would count the money, and I would leave with the money. Other times I would meet Mark in hotel rooms. Mark said, "Okay, I got X amount of dollars." I said, "Okay, you know where to meet." We did very little talking on the phone. We talked, by the way, payphone to payphone. And
yeah.
never used a landline. And I would meet him in the hotel room, me and Dottie. Donnie would always go with me. And Mark would bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you would count it real quick because it was all in stacks of 20s and stacks of hundreds. So the stacks of 20s was $5,000 and stacks of 100 was 25,000. So it didn't, that denomination, it didn't take you long to count $500,000, 5, 10, 15, or 25, 50, 75.
I want to interject something here. You get the stacks of 20s, all right? There's 50 20s in a stack of 20s, I believe, in a $5,000, maybe 100. I don't know. There's a certain number. And in hundreds, there's a less number. I could pick up a stack of 20s, a $5,000 stack, and by the weight, by the feel of it, I could literally tell if there was one or two dollar bills off.
By the weight on a scale, or by the weight of you holding it?
On the weight of holding it. You get incredibly sensitive.
You know what one bill weight?
Yeah,
1
1 gram.
1 gram, and you could tell the difference with 1, 2, 3 grams?
Well, when David Tobias and I were breaking up pounds in the old days, he would be in the bathtub full of marijuana. He would put a bunch of it into a bag. He would hand me the bag, and I had the scale in front of me. As he handed me the bag, I'd feel the bag, and I'd take out a few buds, or I'd put a few buds in, and I would get every time between 1 to 3 grams of an exact pound. So when I put on a scale, I would either take a little bit more out or put a little bit more in. Yes, I could tell if usually not one, but I could tell if there was 2 bills off. I go, this one's light, and I would count it. And over years of doing that, you just get you get sensitive to the weight in your hand. So it was just something I was good at doing.
So I would pick up the money from Mark, and then I would distribute it to the crew or bring it to you, disperse the money. And one of the guys I would give the money to was Charlie Brune. He was like, take the money and, you talk about your investments and stuff like that, or take the money offshore to the other countries. And like 3 times in a row, and I gave money to a lot of people, and no one ever said to me, "Craig, the count was off." Except Charlie. 3 times in a row. He goes, "Oh, that last 100,000 you gave me was $300 short." So after the third time, and he came back, same thing out, "Craig, that last count was off, X amount of dollars." I said, "Charlie, enough of that shit. If it's off, you eat it." So he was the only person of all the people I paid that said something about the count being off, the money.
Right.
I think he's woman.
And he was such a Southern gentleman, he'd only take like 200 or 300. Yeah.
He just wanted to put gas in his car, right? All right, so let's get back to the trial. So you're planning this alibi defense. You got all these witnesses in, and tell us what happens next.
All right, so all these people, and Michelle had a baby, Becky had a baby, Lois had a baby, and the guy at the front desk say to Alan, "What are you doing with all those babies up there?" And he didn't
So
want
you probably look like the Manson crew sitting in the courtroom.
Well, not really, because the witnesses are not allowed in the courtroom when the other witness would testify.
Right.
Oh, gotcha. Right.
Right. So, and now you have Diane sitting with her husband, her new husband, in the back of the courtroom in the beginning, watching this whole thing. Later, she moves up next to the prosecutor, and she's whispering in the prosecutor's ear who everyone is. Well, who's that lady? Oh, that's Lois. She was Bruce's boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. And remember, we had multiple boyfriends and girlfriends back then. It was called an open marriage, Becky and I. It never works. But that was the 60s. That was free love. So you learn that doesn't work. But back then, we thought it worked. Okay. And when you have that much money, you think you're different and it's okay. Because my generation, I don't know what, 20% of the people, 50% of people had open marriages. So anyways, our open relationships.
Yeah,
So
it was easier way before AIDS.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. When I went into prison, I'd look at every woman, with lustful eyes, I guess. Before I went to prison, when I got out of prison, I looked at every woman with a skull and crossbones.
Right, right, right.
So you were way more selective after that, and there was no more open marriages. That ran its course. So, a couple interesting things. So there's one interesting thing where Alex is there. Alex is the pilot. And they're all in his hotel rooms and the thing. And Craig tells an interesting story about someone that you know. So, Craig, tell us what happened with that interesting story.
Are you talking about Lisa and Alex?
Yeah.
Alex,
I know all about.
Was a 21-year excellent pilot, but he was 21 years old. We called the country bunkin. So he had this idea, he's around us partying and, and I guess he just thinks that you jump in bed with the girl who's going to have sex with you. So we had the hotel rooms and Lisa, I would go up to...
Well, hold on. To clarify things, Lisa is Todd's older sister.
That is correct.
And our first cousin.
And our first cousin, very pretty girl back then, man. I'm sure she's still pretty. And I went up to the store. We had a jewelry store, and Todd, your father, worked for us. And I'd go up there because that's how I laundered my money. I put money into the store, and they would give me a paycheck every week. So that was my employment. I'm not a smuggler. I work at the jewelry store. So I went up there to say hi to everybody, and I invited. I said, we were staying down there, and we're having parties down there. Would Lisa like to come down? So Lisa came down. I think she came down 2 nights in a row. So the second night, me and her had a hotel room, 2 beds. We obviously in one bed. She's sleeping in another bed, and we're sleeping. And someone starts shaking me, waking me up, and it's fucking Alex, and he's butt naked. And I go, "What the fuck are you doing?" He says, "You got to leave. I'm gonna jump in bed with your cousin." I said, "Like hell you are." And I picked up his clothes. I grabbed him by the back of the neck. I opened the hotel door and threw him butt naked out into the hall and threw his clothes out there.
Nice.
And then I was going back to bed, and I hear knock, 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 knock. And I go back to the door. Alice says, "Can you give me my shoes?" By then, he put his underwear on at least. But that son of a bitch thought he could just jump into bed naked with my first cousin? And she
way to
the
come
whole
to the
thing,
rescue, Craig.
Al yelling at Alex, throwing him out. I just looked over her. She's still sleeping. I went back to bed. And boy, did I chew him a new asshole the next day.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
What happened the first time you told Todd that story?
Craig, you mind not going there? And
Really?
First of all, I looked over at him.
No,
and
Lisa told me.
I want to kill somebody. Look in his eye.
Lisa told you that, Todd?
Yeah. I knew that story.
Oh, God. I'd love to hear from Lisa's side of the story. We're going to have to talk to her about that.
Right now, she's watching this going, "Oh, my God, I can't believe they're talking about this."
So, Lisa, give me a call and tell me what happened from your side of the perspective. Just like next episode, Alan's going to tell us what it was like, this trial, from the legal side, and what he thought, if he remembers me not worrying. All right. So anyway, now what we're doing, we're doing this alibi defense, and everyone's being prepped. And Sally Heck, who I grew up with, is going to be a witness. And Sally was around up in Gainesville, and Sally was around in Fort Lauderdale too. So she knew that I was in both places. So we call her, and Diane had called and said to Sally, "You don't know who Bruce is like. He's going to have a contract out on your life." I end up calling Sally, and Sally goes, she says, "I'm scared, Bruce. This is what Diane said." And I go, "Sally, this is me, Bruce. You think I'm going to hurt you?" I go, "That's ridiculous." So I calmed her down enough for her to come down and let Alan do preparation. And so here's Alan. "Okay, Sally, did you see Bruce in Gainesville?" "Yes." "Was he in Gainesville all the time?" "Most of the time." "Did you see him in Fort Lauderdale?" "Yeah, oh yeah, he was there too." No, let me rephrase the question. "Bruce was never in Fort Lauderdale, correct?" "No, that's not correct. He was there." Let me rephrase the question. "You only saw Bruce up in Gainesville and you never saw him in Fort Lauderdale. Is that correct?" No. He was in both places." I go, so Alan comes into the room and goes, "Bruce, this isn't working." And she's
not a good
staying
witness.
in one room. So I'm in the other room. And so I said, "Alan, just tell her what to say. I grew up with her. She's one of my best friends." And he goes, "Oh, I can't do that." She tells the prosecutor that, that's obstruction of justice. That's tampering with witnesses. I'll lose my license. I got to play it straight. I go, "All right, Craig will drive her home and Craig will have a talk with her." So I go to Craig. I said, "Craig, drive Sally back to Hollandale or Boca or Fort Lauderdale, wherever she was from, and tell her exactly what to say." All right. And he goes, "Okay." So he drives her home. He explains, the reality to her, friend to friend, and she gets it. Does she get it, Craig? When he came back, yes, she gets it. No problem. She never saw you in Fort Lauderdale. She was only in Gainesville. The deed was done. All right, we have her alibi. But the lawyers didn't trust that exactly. So they had said to her before she left, she goes, "You're going to go on vacation, right?" Well, they couldn't get her to answer where they wanted to before Craig drove her home. "Why don't you just go on vacation? Are you allowed to take a vacation?" She goes, "Yeah." "Well, if you take a vacation, they can't find you to subpoena you." She goes, "Oh, well, then I'm going to take a vacation." So in a trial, they call it a trial. That's a good name because it is a trial. It is stressful. It is intense. Even if you have no confinement in your charge, it's still stressful and intense. So instead of yay, you have a win. Boo, you have a loss, So we became yay, boo, as one of our slogans for the obstructors, okay? Because now we're the obstructors, right? So, yay, Sally's going to take a vacation. Boo, they subpoenaed her before she took her vacation. Yay, Sally's going to maybe not come all the way down. Boo, the prosecutor said that they're going to wait for her to come down. So it was a yay, boo. So what happened at this point, we rested. Everyone said I was up in Gainesville, and nobody could place me for a couple of snitches. Oh, Joel Jennison. He's telling on the witness stand that I was standing there and I got the load and he saw me there. We had a conversation and I go, "Alan, that was a different trip. That wasn't this trip." I go, "I got to tell the judge he's lying. That was a different smuggle." He goes, "Bruce, shut up. He goes, "You can't do that." I go, "Why? It was a different smuggle, not this one." He goes, "No, the last thing you're going to do is tell the judge he's lying. It was a different smuggle." But he did. He lied. And he took something that happened in one smuggle and put it into that scene to place me there at the scene of the crime. And so we had everything's done. Now they do a summation. And Sally's not there. And the prosecutor says to Alan, "How long a drive is it from where Sally is down to the courthouse here?" And Alan goes, "Oh, Jesus, really far. It's about 3 hours or 2 hours." And he goes, "I think it'd be a tactical error for me to wait to get her on the witness stand. And I think I'll start my summation right now." So he starts his summation and Alan's listening to him and the back door of the courtroom opens up. And Alan knows if that's Sally, he'll stop his summation to put her on the witness stand because he's only been into the summation, 1 or 2 minutes. And he puts his head down on the table and says to Ellen Leesfield, "I can't look. please tell me that's not Sally. So Ellen turns around and says, it's not Sally. You were fine. So that was a yay, boo, the court, the courtroom door opened up. Yay, it's not Sally. So you have your ups and downs, your wins and your losses, and every trial is like that.
Sure.
All right. So we end up getting a hung jury. All right. And so we want to go to trial immediately. The lawyer, the prosecutor says, okay, we'll schedule it for like 3 months from now or 120 days from now. And Alan goes, no, we want Speedy Trial Act. We want to go to trial immediately next week. I'm down from New York. We have to, not incur expense and be coming back and forth. And he goes, well, I don't know where all my witnesses are. And Alan goes, oh, I know where they all are. I can tell you exactly where they all are, because we had questioned all the witnesses. And Alan did an amazing job. The prosecutor actually said, I was never beaten so bad in my entire life at a trial.
What was the prosecutor's case? What kind of evidence did they have against you?
What
or was
kind
it
of
just people's words?
Well, he had all these smugglers saying that Bruce was a salesman. He picked up 8,000 pounds, he sold it, and he brought back the money.
Got it. So it was really my word, your word against other guys.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that crept into the war on drugs. It was a 5-year charge when we started. You had to catch us red-handed, which is almost impossible. Me or most other smugglers, we were just very, very sophisticated, and it was very hard to do that. And then they got the conspiracy laws, which they could just say Bruce was there, and that was enough to convict. All right, so
yeah, and now we're just shooting them with military planes. We're just shooting those boats that are flying through the ocean. My, how the times have changed.
So they offered us 30 months probation. Now, at that time,
instead of the retrial?
Yeah, instead of a retrial, if you take 30 months probation, and I think $125,000 fine or $25,000 fine, I think it was, we won't do a retrial. You plead guilty, get 30 months probation. Now, I'm worrying about this massive, and I'm talking massive, massive operation going on. You just told you the millions of dollars. There's 3 boats on the water, either coming up or going down. Oh, that's another thing that happened while we were doing. So anyways, I took the 30 months probation, went out to California to run my entire massive giant organization going on.
Wait. So there's 3 boats on the water during your trial?
Oh, yeah. Either coming up or going down. In fact, that reminded me that the Rachel M., during witness preparation before the trial, actually got busted on the water with Corky Bill. He got 30,000 pound load, got busted on the high seas. The only bust in the entire California operation was at that time. And Craig remembers that because I was saying to Kat Bennett, the jury and trial consultant, Kat, I just lost a load. And Craig says, Bruce, they don't need to know that kind of information. So, yeah, we did lose a load. So that happened. And in the long run,
yeah, but so what happens when you lose a load and you lose a boat? I mean, what happens to those guys?
They all got, I think the Rainwaters got 18 months. It's California. They were not that, big on the war on drugs, and marijuana wasn't like that big a deal. Not like in Florida where they were giving people life sentences for just marijuana, which is ludicrous.
Yeah, right? Bobby Platshorn, 30 years, right?
Yeah, Randy Lanier, 32 years. Yeah. Richard DeLisi, close to 30 years. It was just insane. I mean, these are all great people too. Good people.
Yeah. All right, well, Bruce, it's been another fascinating day of cocaine, hookers, and marijuana. It's a pretty good day, if you ask me, right? But we're going to come back next week. We're going to hear from Alan, who was the lawyer who got you those 30 months, right, of probation. And then we'll hear the stories of the 2 boats that were going on, right, when you were in trial. Any last words you'd like to add?
Yeah, I believe Alan was one of the original founders of NORML, a brilliant, funny, witty, charming attorney that my life was interlaced with for about 4 or 5 years. Yeah, he was my.
I guess as a marijuana smuggler, you need a good lawyer, right?
Yeah, what we would do back in those days, we'd give lawyers a $100,000 retainer just in case. That was the standard with all those lawyers. And they were, as a general rule, amazing, great lawyers. Unlike the lawyers of today, which there's an old saying, what's 6,000 lawyers at the bottom of the ocean? Dead lawyers at the bottom of the ocean. A good start. Why won't a shark attack a lawyer in the ocean?
Because they don't eat their own.
Professional courtesy.
Right. There you go. Well, there you have it, folks. And I think Shakespeare said, right? First thing you do is kill all the lawyers. So Bruce, thanks for another great day of smuggling stories. I look forward to coming back next week. And make sure you tell Craig. We'll see him next time. And we'll see you next time right here on Becoming the King of Pop.